Good morning. My name is Greer. Welcome to my presentation on how college students are managing their time in online classes. If you're watching this in the morning, in class time, happy last day. I know it's been an interesting semester, but I feel like I've learned a lot, so I'm really excited to share this with you guys. I had so much fun doing it. Here we go. So, the purpose of this presentation was, again, just to get an idea of what the most common time management methods are that students are actually using in their online courses. And I went at this with my audience in mind, being people who have never taken an online class. So maybe it's your freshman year in college, you have to take an online class, you want to know what you're getting yourself into. And maybe someone who's interested in taking an online class because they're really busy and there's room for it in their schedule. So I really went at this with what would I have wanted to know before I threw myself into a year and a half fully online in college, because I had to learn a lot, and it was really hard because even though I didn't have to go to class, I mentally had to go to class, and I really had to show up and figure out how to schedule my time according to the course. So the problem is that, especially post-COVID, online classes are a very big part of the college experience. They're normal now, and they're really convenient for people who have super busy schedules. But students have to develop time management skills to keep up with them, otherwise it can get hairy really fast. If they don't, they face the possibility of procrastination, which is just like a really severe delay in taking action when it comes to like your academic responsibilities. I'm sure we're all familiar with it. But like not being able to manage your time or not understanding how to manage your time can also affect your just your self-image negatively. It can lead to things like anxiety, depression, especially post-COVID. And so that's why I sampled several articles post-COVID. I have, one titled Relationship Among Online Learning, Time Management, and Self-Anxiety of University Students During COVID-19. I also took some from an article called Tips for Taking Online Classes, 8 Strategies for Success. And I believe college students' time management, a self-regulated learning perspective, where self-regulated is the big one. It's because you have to do it yourself. So, procedures and methodology. This is where I had fun because my data was obviously collected from a sample size of 20 UA students. I used both stratified convenient and then also stratified systematic sampling. So the convenient part was where I just emailed the people in my other 2 online classes and asked them my survey questions. And also I talked to people in another in-person class that I'm taking about the survey. And then the stratified systematic sampling meant that I put myself through the shame and embarrassment of walking up to people in the library and in the student union. So I did every 3rd group just because I kind of wanted to try it out and see what it was about. And I spoke to them about it. And my data set, I got half the data set from walking around roughly, and then half the data set from just emailing people, having conversations. So my survey questions came from the College Students' Time Management, Self-Regulated Learning Perspective article. This is published in the Educational Psychology Review in 2021, and it laid out some of the basic basic places to start with time management tools. So that was like schedule with time blocks. Do you use to-do lists? Use an app? Are you using a calendar, a planner, whatever it may be? And that's where I got my questions from. So when I asked people about the methods that they use, I asked, do you use a schedule with time blocks, to-do lists, an app, some combination, or none of these? And then I also asked them, obviously, if they were taking online classes or not. That was like a big weed out question. And then what their gender identity was and if they had a job or not at the time that they were taking those classes. So my data and results. So from those 20 people, I was able to use relative frequency to just calculate the different frequencies based on the questions that I asked. That gives me a good idea of how to characterize my data, how to talk about it. So my subsets, I had obviously the male-female subset. So 30% of my data set was male, and then 70% of them were female. And then my non-working and working subset is where things get interesting, because 95% of students that I surveyed who were taking online classes were working. Only 5% weren't. And then from there, 20% of people use to schedule with time blocks, 30% use to-do lists, 5% of people use an app, so that was not popular, 35% are using some combination of the listed methods, and then 10% were using none, which is fine. So these are my charts. This one over here, ooh, that was weird, sorry. This one over here just breaks down the gender distribution. So again, 30% male, 70% female. And then this one is my favorite because I think it says a lot. So do you have a job? Yes, clearly the answer was yes, 95% of the time, because 95% of my data set had a job. So this is where we get into the questions. So yes, I ask questions the whole time, but the question about how the method that people use to manage their time. So I had a schedule with time blocks, to-do lists, an app, some combination or none of these. You probably can't see this very well, so I'm gonna move it a little closer. Ooh, but clearly some combination was the most popular. So I thought that was interesting. My assessment. So from my data set, more females than males are taking online classes. And from that data set too, 95% of people are working as they're taking these online courses. Only 5% of people weren't. The majority of students, this is the big one, are using some combination of time management methods to manage their time. So they're using some combination of the schedule, the schedule with time blocks, the to-do list, or the app. So making to-do list alone was the second most common method. Time blocks was the third. Using none, so just kind of free planning, was the fourth most common, and then using an app was the fifth most common. So again, the majority of students, which was 90% of my data set, are using some kind of constructive method to manage their time in an online class, which is great, and that also speaks to my audience, but I'll get into that in a second because we're just on the assessment slide. So it doesn't look like there's any one singular most common way to manage your time in an online class, but that a combination is the way to go right now. I guess that was the 35% majority. So my recommendations, and this is again from the article about college students' time management, a self-regulated learning perspective from the Educational Psychology Review that was published in 2021. There are positive associations between academic performance, good well-being, and solid time management skills. So it pays to manage your time well. That comes through in your grades and how you feel about yourself, everything. And so students interested in taking online classes should really expect to use a variety of methods to manage their time, because that's what the students in this data set are doing. That's my recommendation as the researcher. So strategic behaviors like using a planner, a calendar, setting goals for yourself, following through, making to-do lists, those are all really great places to start. So limitations and opportunities. I don't feel the data set was big enough to really get a handle on this, but we certainly got a good start. Again, lack of concrete research on any one most common or any one most efficient way to do time management in an online course. So that's like a big place for just improvement, expanding opportunities, research, all that kind of thing. Future study, if you will. So I have on here, we could expand most common, which was the purpose of my report, into most effective. I think that would be really interesting, especially in the digital world where like literally taking an online class, everything's online. So are you using an app or are you writing everything out? I thought that would be interesting to explore. And then also, I felt like my data was like slightly skewed just because I'm wondering if I, as the researcher, I'm a woman, did I feel more comfortable approaching women when I was doing my like stratified systematic sampling? So that's why I have up here random sampling, random anonymous sampling would be important, all stratified. And that's also why I chose not to break down the gender distribution too much, because I didn't feel that I could do that in a way that was productive. But again, just random sampling across multiple college campuses. We need a bigger data set. We need wider distribution, because that'll obviously give us more even gender distribution. And then I also want to survey exclusively working students, because I think the takeaway here is that most people who are taking online courses are working because most people have to work. So I think that would be interesting. I have my contact information up here. I honestly might do this again for fun because it was really fun. But so you can contact me if you have questions or inquiries for future research. I would love to hear from you. Maybe we can do it together. These are my references. I didn't talk a lot about the actual authors' names. I lean more towards the article names because I didn't want to butcher names because I thought that would be kind of uncomfortable for everyone. But they are all here. Please read them. They're all interesting, and I think they can start a lot of interesting conversations about how learning has changed after COVID. So thank you for watching my presentation. I hope you had a great time in this class. I did, and I learned a lot. So farewell.